Hello, welcome to Me with Margaret. Now, Me stands for Motivate, Educate and Engage. But that's not all we're about today. We're here to talk about stories. So we have this platform where we look at stories that impact on our community, our families, ourselves. And you know what? Sometimes you might think, I know all that. I don't need to hear that. But trust me, you might hear it, you might listen, and it might be for somebody else. So today it's about looking at those topics, those subjects that can improve, that can impact, that can help, that can motivate, that can educate and engage somebody out there. So welcome to Me Stories again. And today I have a lovely young lady who's going to be sharing with us from her wealth of experience. And I think it will do somebody good out there. I've heard a bit and I'm still learning a bit more. So let's come along with me and let's listen to this lovely lady. So, hello, BarBra.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
So, welcome to Me.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Tell us about yourself. I think they'd like to know who you are.
Sure. So, my name is BarBra, and I'm a neurodevelopment nurse and also pediatric trained, and I'm a health visitor by background.
Wow. So, how long have you been working in this capacity?
So I have been a nurse for over 15 years, and my passion is children. My passion is looking at development of children and supporting families, especially from the BME group.
Fantastic. Now you said something about neurodevelopment. Can you break that down a bit? Because we have a lot of people that might say, what's that? Is it about the brain? Is it about what kind of areas are we looking at here?
To put it simply, you're right, it is about the brain. And because I work with children, it's about looking at how the brain is developing and how a child is developing. And how do we know? It's because of how they are presenting. So we know that from science and from over time, a child at certain aspects of their lives, they have to be developing a particular way. So you're crawling, a child smiling, by the time they walk, by the time they start talking, all of those are developmental milestones. So when we now start to see that there is a deviation or there's difficulties in those milestones and they've not been attained at the right time, that is when I come in and we start to now look at the neurodevelopment of that child. So the way the brain has been formed for that child, what has gone wrong, what are the difficulties that is causing those milestones to not be on time.
Thank you for sharing. You know, to take that a bit further, I know that one of the biggest things, especially in my line of work, that we see is children on the spectrum or children with special needs. Could you just break that down a bit for us about, because I think that's part of what you do as well?
Very much so, you're right. And we have, over time now, I would say the National Autistic Society, which is the big society in the UK itself that looks at autism as a whole, have seen a very high increase of autism, children with autism. And in particular in our BME group, we are seeing, at least 1 in 100 children now who have autism. And it's really important for us to talk about this issue. So I'm really glad that I'm on this platform with yourself to really sort of address things to look out for your child. What is it that is going on? And to be able to seek early help, because early intervention is the key to autism.
You've said it, but I agree with you, but some of our families might feel that I don't think I believe in it. I don't think my child has it. And, there's this element of denial. Apart from that, and in addition to that, what other challenges do you think our communities face when we talk about autism?
Okay. I guess maybe if I just backtrack a little bit and maybe explain what is autism, because the name in itself may be quite scary for most parents. And yes, you could argue, and I have seen this in a lot of my clinics, where parents will be saying, but we don't have this back home. We've never heard of it. What is it? Is it something that is just happening only in Europe? What is going on? So there is that denial bit. But understanding and having knowledge of that subject often helps us to ease into understanding what is going on and hopefully then to be able to get the right support. So autism is a neurodevelopment condition. It is lifelong, but it is looking at how we interact with the world. So that is what we call our social communication. It is also looking at how we use language in an everyday world. So for children who are on the autism spectrum or who have autism, would have those aspects where they cannot interact with others the same way we are interacting right now. I talk to you, you talk to me, and there's that to and fro conversation. They can also not be able to understand language, so I could send them to get something. They're not able to understand what you've told them to do. Yeah? So there is that aspect. For some children with autism, they may actually be displaying some behaviors which are not normal, socially awkward, like maybe flapping their hands, perhaps screaming, screeching, perhaps not even having a language. So all of those things lead us and to tell us that a child has got autism.
I'd like to stop you there and ask this particular question, because you gave the example that we didn't have this back home. What's the difference between having it back home and here? Has it always been like that, or is it that we just didn't know? Has it always been back home, or is it more in Europe?
It has always been back home, and I can relate because I have a lived experience where we have a relative who actually has have a nephew who's got autism. What it is again, it was just a lack of awareness. It was there back home, but people would have given it a different name back home. Perhaps they would just say, "Oh, I think this one has got a mental, a problem," and sort of ignore it. For some, they can know that this person or this child is challenged in some ways, maybe learning, but they will still overly punish them, thinking that there's something wrong, they need to learn a different way. And these are the children who, over time, you could see that there was something not right, but we just didn't know. Yes, the awareness in the UK, in Europe, is so much that we know more about it, but autism has always been there. Wow. And we're learning a little bit more and more over time. Fantastic. About that.
And for those of us watching, when we say back home, we're talking about, from Africa, from the Caribbean, from everywhere we might have come from. And we're just talking real things today, because sometimes we might be in denial. So we're going back to our story once again as we listen to BarBra. So BarBra, so you were saying that, okay, yes, autism is real. Could you take us through the different spectrums, especially the stages of autism or special needs?
Mm-hmm. So what we know now from science is that we start to notice autism or early signs of autism just after a child is 1 or before 2. The reason being, these are the stages where we start to see a child maybe starting to talk. And if they don't have language at that time, then you're starting to see that perhaps there is something there. Now, over time, getting to 2, getting to 3, you may start to actually see that the child now may be developing language at a really, really slow stage, and then maybe developing those behaviors that I was explaining, the socially awkward behaviors of perhaps pacing up and down, being disruptive, flapping their hands, and perhaps just screeching and not talking at all, or not expressing. Exactly. You probably have seen those in the supermarket, maybe on the street. They cover their ears and they really they look to society as a child who may be naughty. They look to society maybe as a child who is not disciplined. And this is what my passion right now is about, highlighting those things, because parents don't want to take their children out who have autism because they think, what will everybody say? What will people in the supermarket say? They'll think that my child is not disciplined, or they think that I am not helping my child. But no, society needs to understand, and you as a parent, maybe you have a child who's displaying some of these things, you need to seek help. Get your health visitor involved. Get the GP involved, because you need support. You need to know how to help your child with these strategies. There's nothing wrong with your child. There's nothing wrong with your parenting. It is just your child has got this condition, and it is called autism.
Thank you, BarBra. Now, you said something about looking for or seeking help. Some of our parents will say, but we've sought help. I'm not being supported enough. I'm not, people are not listening to me, or they just told me to do this. And especially if maybe language is their second, English is their second language, they might not have the confidence in speak. So what should we do? Because this is a big challenge, and especially when they might be going through what you call, I don't know, I think you're going to explain that about the plan, having a diagnosis and things like that. A lot of our parents are struggling. What do you have to say to this?
I honestly sympathize with what is going on. I mean, now that we've seen that autism is on the rise, there really hasn't been enough of support as we would like, and perhaps as I would like as well, because with the rise, the resources are not there, but there is still support. And I truly, truly empathize with parents, and you have to be the voice for your child. You have to keep seeking, you have to keep knocking. And that is being a parent, and that is also being somebody who is seeking answers for your loved one. I would still reiterate the same message. GP, health visitors. We have organizations like the organization that you have, Margaret, and I think I'll be really, really happy if you can, at the end of your broadcast, actually put details, for your organization, so that we can start to support these families, because they really need it. And I know, especially from the BME group, because of language barrier, and also, again, sometimes I think there is also a lack of trust in a lot of the establishments, thinking that actually if I go to seek help and I'm not coping, social services will be involved. Do not fear, because at the end of the day, this is about your child. Do everything that you can for your child, and there is nothing that can go wrong, if you are seeking help for your child.
I'm going to ask you a very particular question, because I'm going to ask you to show us what you have here. But one of the things that is also on the rise is mental health issues. Mental health displays itself in so many ways, and having a child with autism or any other special needs can actually impact on the mental health of the parents. What do you have to say to this?
You are so right. You really are right. And I think having that awareness that the stresses of looking after a child with autism is 24/7. These children are perhaps climbing the walls, climbing the cabinets. They need supervision 24 hours. They need a lot of attention. Having said that, so parents are impacted because they can't go out, they can't have me time, they cannot also be able to socialize with other families and other children. So help is there, and we've got SADC talking therapies. We've also got organizations like yourself that are helping families to just come together, because mental well-being is really about talking to somebody else, reaching out to another person, because once you speak out whatever it is that is concerning you, it is half the load shared, right? Coming from communities where BME communities, this is what we thrived on, talking to other people, sharing that load. So I would still say that there is, if you can have time for yourself, whether it is coming to a center or a session where they are actually just talking about mental. I think you do sessions on mental health. Yes, we do,
and I'll talk a bit about that later on. And it's something new that we are trying to do as well, is to create space for parents, not just for the activities, like we have after-school activities, but parents can sit down, have tea and have coffee and talk. So it's a safe space where you can just discuss things, and hopefully will be next year in 2023. Our aim is to bring in professionals that will share, that will talk, that will encourage. So watch this space. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. So back to our conversation. What do you have here? Do you want to tell us about what you have here today?
Yeah, so I have my box. It's a sensory box, and this is something that families can make at home. You have all of these things that you can find in your cupboard. I have actually some rice, which is in a used little container.
Why do you call it sensory? Why? Because is that one of the triggers? Because one of the things that children display. So yeah.
That's correct. You're right, Margaret. So we find that a lot of children on the autism spectrum also have sensory needs. In fact, all of us as humans, we have sensory needs. We have got senses in our eyes, our vision, our hearing, our mouth and our tasting, and our smelling. But those senses for children with autism are heightened, which means that they're a lot more sensitive. So perhaps they can come in a room like this, the light might be too bright for them, and in fact that can actually cause them to have an overwhelming sense of unease. So they will get quite distressed, and perhaps those are the children you probably will see covering either their eyes or hiding under a table or getting really agitated because the light is too much for them. And there are some children who perhaps just like a feel of something soft like this, and that will calm them down just by squeezing this ball. And I know in mental health, even this is actually something...
I think it's good for us as like...
Exactly. Just to squeeze on that. For some children, it just could be bubbles. Bubbles that you buy in a pound shop. And blowing those bubbles, asking the child to blow in them. If they've been crying or distressed, this is actually something that could calm them down. So having a sensory box or a sensory kit where you can get these things out of your cupboard for your child is helpful if you're going shopping, etc. I've got some paper. Some children with autism actually love the noise and just feeling that just calms them down, you know. And some of these that you can just get from the pound shop, where they'll just be squeezing this, even if they're on the bus, they're distressed, etc. So
I even think there's something like that with the bubble paper. When you wrap a gift, you undo the gift, and then you can the children can, wow, that's interesting.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. You know, these are all things that appealing to the senses of a child with autism. Pasta in a bottle. It just helps them to make that noise, and they could play with that, etc. So, you know, without the knowledge of knowing how to help your child, you may think, I need, you know, how do I do this? But it's as simple as that. Knowing in particular your child, studying your child, and helping them to desensitize or to calm down their sensory overload in the various aspects.
What age will you consider using these resources, these tools?
From any age.
And does it go up to adult?
I have a lived experience. So my nephew is actually 14, and he has one of these. He's 14. So, and for him, this calms him down, just pressing on this. So really, it is obviously for children that you start to see that they have got autism characteristics, and they have got a sensory need, then anything here will help. But I am appealing to every parent, to be honest, that if they seek help, we will be able to look at your child as an individual, because that's what they are. They are an individual, and then we'll be able to help them with their particular needs in terms of their sensory or in terms of their safety when they're outside or indoors. So I can't wait, Margaret. If you are having any of those parenting skills workshop, I'm happy to come along, speak to our community, and help them as individuals to.
We will, trust me.
Yeah.
There's another question I'd like to ask. You know, in terms of they were talking about a plan. I'd like you to expatiate, because some people, they might not have a diagnosis, they might be seeing some signs of having special needs or being autistic, but it's not confirmed. And now these parents find themselves in limbo, and they don't know where to turn, or they've not been confirmed, and it's stressing them. And then what do you have to say to this?
It is such a pity, and that the way the system is that, you know, you've got to wait for confirmation of diagnosis, etc.
How long does that take? So
nationally, the waiting lists are up to a year. They're up to a year, and a year in a child's life is a lot. It is a lot. So what I would say to parents that go seek a GP, a professional, to ask about their child who they see clearly in front of them has got a need, is about saying, look, this is what I've seen with my child, but I need help. What do you need help in? So you as a parent need to be able to articulate what you need help in. Do you need help in strategies to manage their behavior because they cannot sleep, or because they're going into the fridge? Or is it because you need help in a particular way and you need to demand for that help whilst you're waiting? Because there's nothing that says you need to wait for a label, a diagnostic, to say your child, because you are with your child every day and you can see what their needs are.
Another challenge, because yes, we're talking about the parent. Yes, she's my child, he's my child. But this child has to go to school. What happens when the child is in school? Because we found out that there's so many schools that have not been as supportive as you'd like them to be. Not because some of them don't want to, but maybe because they're overstretched, there's no funding, they can't give the child one-to-one. Now this is an added stress. Your thoughts, please?
Yeah, again, it is a struggle. I totally get it. And I am going to say to you that under the Equality Act, every child who has got difficulties or who has some learning need, whether they are diagnosed or not, every school should be providing the support for that child. Now, most parents I speak to do not even know that you can actually ask for a SENCO, a school SENCO. That's a special educational needs coordinator. Speak to them about your individual child and say to them, what is it that you're providing for my child? How can I help my child? How will you help my child? So here you are being the voice for your child. You are talking to the school about it. Yes, funding is not there, but in particular for children with special educational needs, whether they're diagnosed or not, they have a need, they should have provision. Every school should be providing it. If that school is not providing it, we can challenge that. Organizations like yourself should be challenging it with the council for that particular borough, because this is what the government has put in place.
Wow. It seems we've got our work cut out, guys. We've got so much to do, because I'm learning as well. And one of the things I'm very sure of that was, with what BarBra has been talking about, a lot of our parents still don't have that confidence. Having a child that has every sensory need met is even, there's stresses attached to that, talk less of a child that has autism. So the idea or the thing is, we need to encourage our parents in terms of their confidence. Some parents are not confident anyway. And so what we try to do is to support them, give them advice. And so what we want to do is to push that a bit further. If you have any thoughts or any questions at all, please drop us a line and we can speak to you a bit more about that. We also have opportunities where you can come into the center and you can talk to somebody. We might not have all the answers, but we have somebody like BarBra who is willing to provide that support and to talk to us as well. And trust me, we will do our very best, because we know that there's a lot of isolation out there. There's a lot of challenges out there, but that's why we're here. Parent Skills to Go is a place where you can visit, where you can talk, where you can develop your confidence, and where you can be supported to access the appropriate services. So I just want to use this opportunity to say thank you, BarBra, for joining us today. It's been very, enlightening. So many times I hear this. We run an Autism Level 2 program at the moment, and we hope to run more in the nearest future. But talking about it all the time and having you come to explain it a bit more in layman's terms has been very helpful. But hopefully we'll have you back again. So do you have any last thoughts for parents out there?
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you so much for having me on this platform. As a parent, I would say to you, please take up the time to come to the skills workshops. Come and just have the knowledge and get yourself the confidence to be able to articulate, advocate for your child. And not only that, as a parent, once you have the skills and the knowledge, the strategies of how to help your child, if they have special needs, then to be honest with you, it is your work cut out. Your mental health will be fine. You are able then to help other parents as well in the community, because that is what we're here for.
Thank you so much. So that's it for today, guys. It's been Me Stories. Next time we'll bring you another story. But please share, like, and subscribe. Somebody needs to hear this. Somebody needs to see this. I'll see you next time with Me with Margaret. Thank you.